To unpack this conversation for us, we're now joined by energy analyst Adil Nchabeleng, and he joins us via our video link. Adil, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on SABC News. I mean, 7 days without electricity, and seeing that good news being announced by the electricity minister today, one would say that, it really is a great time, especially because we find ourselves in the festive season.
Absolutely. This is a good news in the sense that at least load shedding has been suspended for the period until, I think, when industries return back to operation as well as functionality. So yes, there's been a huge saving. Between 5,000 to 6,000 has been shaved off in terms of electricity consumption from the grid, and that is why you see such a reduced level of demand and an increased level of maintenance by Eskom. So this is good news, this is great news. And the fact that the minister reported very accurately to say that they have managed to reduce the level of what we call a UCLF, unplanned capacity loss factor, which is the breakdowns that has been happening. If you recall, it was sitting at 16,000. Now they've reduced it to 12,000, about 12,250 megawatts in respect. So, there's been huge changes. The focus is now on the right fundamentals, fixing power stations, making sure that units are operational, and moving away from relying on diesel supply as well as diesel electricity generation, which is the most expensive cost of a fuel source that you can find. And the reduction in that will help Eskom save and focus part of that budget into maintenance.
But load shedding is always a tricky factor in our country. Sometimes, we're gone for days with electricity, and then, on another day we are told something has broken down at one of the power stations. How long can South Africans expect this reprieve, especially if we are being told that, because of industries closing, we can, sort of really enjoy the reprieve we are seeing right now?
I think during this festive season, in the next week or so, there definitely will not be any load shedding if the current system holds up. The current levels of breakdowns are sitting at 12,000, and they are increasing the maintenance. So the juggling of the ball is between the fact that, one, there is a demand which causes the problems into the national grid and system. So once there is no current demand that is actually escalating, you have a festive season like now, most of the industries are closed, mining companies, major industrial operational companies are closed. You will have no demand. But the moment the demand spikes, operations goes back to normal. You are going to have now a situation where Eskom must find additional electricity, which they didn't have previously, and they are going to have to load shed us in order to balance the demand as well as the current available supply in the grid. So that is why you're going to see. But I think the first week of the year, you are not supposed to have load shedding. Yeah. And if they improve the current EF and up it to a level of 60%, by March we should not be having electricity crisis in South Africa. And if we reduce that 12,000 to at least 10,000 megawatts of breakdowns, definitely we are out of the load shedding crisis that South Africa is faced with.
And can South Africans trust? I know we're speaking about the good news, and because of industries closing, and there's one would say lesser demand for electricity right now as we speak. But can South Africans trust that come Christmas Day, no one is going to be getting a notification that says, unfortunately, we'll have to implement load shedding?
Well, if they pull a load shedding hat trick on Christmas Day, it is definitely going to be an April Fool's joke, because the current system is holding up. There is no demand in the system. And if they pull a load shedding, red card, then it means really we're not having serious leaders. Something behind the scene is just being orchestrated. But I doubt they will do that, because then you're going to have a seriously angry nation. People want to enjoy this festive season quietly with secure electricity, not the current crisis that we came out of in the most part of the year.
What is needed, actually, by the Energy Department to ensure that, the current festive energy plan is sustainable for the country, especially as we head into the new year?
Look, currently, right now, there's not much they can do. They've already shaved off more than 5,000. The fact that it's a festive season was a bonus for the power utility. Eskom is on a really celebrating mood because nobody's giving flag to the ministers, to the Eskom board, as well as the executives, because, they are looking at levels whereby they are performing, because there's no load shedding. But the minute industry comes back, there is activity, schools are opening up, and, business goes back to normality. You're going to have a high surge of demand. So what they need to do, as I said, reduce that 12,000 megawatts of breakdowns, unplanned, the capacity loss factor, to at least 10,000. You've got an additional 2,500 megawatts of electricity available once you reduce it. And then make sure that your maintenance is increased slightly so that you have additional units that are functional. So once you do that, you have solved the whole problem of load shedding in South Africa. And so far they're doing that. And it will up the current energy availability factor and make sure that we are in a safe zone. If they're not using diesel now and they reduce another 2,500, it already tells you we are ending load shedding as it's supposed to have been done. We predicted that it will take 6 months to make sure that load shedding can be ended. They've shown within the last 6 months, since June to December, load shedding has been mitigated in terms of ending it. So the plan works. They just have to follow it.
And, you've predicted that, come March next year, we will not have severe load shedding as we experienced for most of this year. What informs that? Why are you so sure that, come March, we can expect really much less load shedding in the country?
No, Mbali, currently the prediction is based on the fact that, one, Eskom as well as the government, which is the ruling party, cannot afford to be having a load shedding during an election season. That's the number one. So they are going to do everything to make sure they cover up. Even if there are faults, they will make sure that those faults are taken care of. There's budgets available and there's money allocated towards ensuring that there is no crisis of energy availability. And they will be providing electricity so that elections decision, when people are going to the ballots and voting in May, they are not going to vote on the basis that they are angry over the government's failure to provide electricity, which is a failure attributed to the ruling party. So the ANC is going to make every effort possible to make sure that we don't have electricity crisis during the first part of the year, especially going into the elections, so that there is a positive election outcome and people are not going to be voting on the basis of anger. If there's load shedding during elections, you're guaranteed there's going to be a crisis in terms of ballots whereby people are going to vote and use electricity as a main voting issue.
Yeah. And of course, one would say that, when you analyze previous elections, we know the ruling party was actually penalized by some of its voters for the e-toll system. So looking at your predictions that, the elections here are really going to play a big role when it comes to power supply in the country.
Absolutely. And if the ANC is the ruling party right now, does not take this issue of electricity, does not take this issue of power cuts as well as load shedding into consideration and seriously, and they don't keep to their word, because they had promised by December, load shedding should have been a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Gladly, we are in December. The 24th is currently on the corner as the promised date. And if it persists beyond December, we have load shedding in January, February, it means that they have failed to keep a promise. And then you're going to see them fall back in terms of the, a backlash from the public, from the constituencies, from the people that are going to be deciding the next year's elections. And I can tell you, load shedding issue is number one on the top list of people. And they are fed up, businesses are closed, there's no income, there's no economy. It's just a disruption of normal life. So people are going to vote mainly on the inspiration that, do we vote for a government that's going to give us electricity security, or it's going to keep on making sure that we suffer through load shedding?
Adil, thank you so much for your time here on SABC News. That is Adil Nchabeleng. He is an energy expert there, just giving us his analysis when it comes to the current reprieve we are seeing with, of course, the issues around load shedding. Of course, we've been without electricity, with electricity rather, for the past 7 days. And of course, we're not expecting, according to the energy or electricity minister, that we will be receiving any load shedding over the festive season.